Friends, if you're excited to watch the suspense-filled and spine-chilling movie Heretic 2024 in English, then make sure to like this video right now. And if you're visiting our channel for the first time, a big welcome to you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you never miss any updates about the latest films, reviews, and entertainment news. Today's video is going to be a complete guide to Heretic 2024, a film that's been making waves for its mysterious plot, powerful performances, and eerie atmosphere. In this video, we're going to dive deep into everything you need to know about Heretic. What is this film about? What makes it different from other horror thrillers? Who are the people behind it? And more importantly, where can you watch it? Whether it's streaming on a particular OTT platform or airing on a satellite TV channel, I'll tell you exactly how and where you can watch this movie in English. No need to search endlessly. I've got you covered with all the details. But that's not all. We're also going to take a detailed look at the movie's technical aspects. We'll talk about the direction, screenplay, cinematography, lighting, editing, and how all these elements work together to create the chilling and intense mood of the film. Then we'll move on to the music department, how the background score adds to the suspense, and how sound design plays a huge role in horror films like this one. We'll also go behind the scenes to talk about pre-production planning, the locations chosen for filming, the kind of set design used, and how the filmmakers brought the world of Heretic to life. I'll tell you about the filming process, any interesting facts or challenges faced during the shoot, and how post-production shaped the final product. Of course, we'll also discuss the film's budget, the marketing strategy, and its box office collection, so you can get a full picture of how the film has performed commercially. Then comes the part everyone looks forward to, the story. I'll give you a short summary of what Heretic is all about, without any major spoilers. We'll also take a look at the cast and the characters they play, and I'll share my thoughts on the performances. Which actor stood out the most? Which character leaves a lasting impression? I'll break it all down for you. Whether it's a lead role or a supporting performance, you'll get all the details right here. And finally, we'll talk about some interesting trivia and lesser-known facts about Heretic. Did you know this film had some unexpected inspirations? Or that a certain scene took days to perfect? I'll be sharing all the juicy behind-the-scenes info that fans love. So friends, make sure to watch this video till the end, because there's a lot to uncover. Alright then, without any more delay, let's jump into the world of Heretic and see what makes this film such a gripping experience. Let's start the video. Imagine this. Two clean-cut missionaries, dressed modestly, full of youthful confidence and quiet zeal, going door to door in the middle of nowhere. It's a calm afternoon. They knock. They smile. They speak with the rehearsed cadence of people who truly believe they are offering salvation. That's how Heretic 2024 begins. So ordinary, so composed. You're not even sure what kind of movie this is going to be. Maybe something psychological? Maybe a slow-burn religious horror? It's polite, it's subdued, it's familiar. And then they meet him. Mr. Reed. One door changes everything. That moment, the knock, the pause, the answer, is the first crack in reality. He lets them in. Quietly. No resistance. But there's something unsettling about his hospitality, like he's been waiting. He offers them a seat, a conversation, a smile. But something about him, his tone, his timing, his stillness, starts to fray the edges of comfort. From the moment the missionaries cross his threshold, the narrative closes in like a trap. What seemed like a typical day in the life of two devoted women becomes a descent into psychological disorientation. At first, you think the story is going to follow the classic horror route. Strangers trapped in a house, creepy host, secrets behind locked doors. But Heretic is more devious than that. It doesn't just trap the characters, it traps you too. The storytelling begins to curve and twist. Time doesn't behave the way it should. Conversations fold back in on themselves. You start to notice things repeating or shifting slightly, like déjà vu. The structure becomes unreliable, linear storytelling dissolves. The narrative stops being a straight road and becomes a maze of rooms, memories, flashbacks, hallucinations, and metaphysical questions. The turning point isn't loud, it's quiet, creeping, like water rising slowly under a locked door. One of the missionaries, Sister Paxton, begins to sense something is deeply wrong. But it's not just Mr. Reed's odd behavior. It's the feeling that the house itself is watching them, or worse, changing them. Doors don't lead to the same place twice. The air grows heavy with silence. There's a piano that seems to play itself, a flickering lamp that seems to know when someone is scared. Scenes begin to shift unpredictably. One moment, a normal conversation. The next, the room is drenched in shadow and the floor seems to tilt. And here's where the film gets really bold. It stops caring about keeping you comfortable. It doesn't bother with exposition or spoon-fed clues. Instead, it plays with perception. Flashbacks slide into the present without warning. A scene that begins as reality suddenly becomes memory. Then, maybe, it wasn't a memory at all. Maybe it was a vision, a metaphor. The film toys with your grip on truth, the way a cat toys with a bird. You start to question whether the sisters were ever meant to leave this house, whether they were ever supposed to come in, whether they are, in fact, who they say they are. The conflict sharpens. Not just external danger, but a psychological war. One of the sisters begins to lose her sense of reality. She sees images from her past, twisted and haunting. She hears whispers through the walls, words that echo doubts she's tried to silence for years. The other sister becomes obsessed with staying strong, keeping the faith, convinced that this is a test to their devotion. And as they pull in opposite directions, their bond begins to unravel. The horror isn't just the man in the house, it's the way belief, when pushed too far, begins to devour the believer. Mr. Reed never acts like a villain in the traditional sense. He doesn't snarl or scream or chase them with a knife. He talks, calmly, logically. He speaks in riddles, in philosophical questions, in disturbing observations about human nature and faith. He challenges their doctrine, their past, their identities. And every question he asks sounds more like an accusation. As he peels away their certainties, the movie peels away yours too. What is real? What is performance? What is divine? What is madness? As the sisters move deeper into the house, the movie itself becomes more surreal. Time begins to stutter. Rooms echo with things never said aloud. One scene might take place in 3 time periods at once. A mirror shows a memory. A hallway seems to stretch forever. The house transforms into a psychological purgatory where belief, guilt, trauma, and doubt all collide. You're not just watching characters trapped, you feel trapped with them, pulled deeper into a spiral of collapsing logic and suffocating dread. There's a moment, an unforgettable moment, when one of the sisters confronts a version of herself. Not a literal clone, but a manifestation of all the things she's repressed: guilt, fear, rage, disbelief. It's not a traditional horror scene. There's no scream, no gore. But it's deeply disturbing because the horror comes from inside, not outside. That's the genius of Heretic. It tells a story where the scariest monsters are belief systems turned inward, consuming the very people they once gave purpose to. The narrative never quite returns to normal. It builds to an ending that is fragmented, chaotic, and layered in symbolism. There's no triumphant escape, no clear resolution. You don't get a tidy explanation. Instead, the movie ends with a question hanging in the air, a question about the nature of belief, about the limits of perception, and about the cost of surrendering your will to something greater than yourself. So no, Heretic does not follow a conventional 3-act structure. It doesn't give you the comfort of rising action, climax, and resolution. It gives you a spiral, a descent. It lures you in with simplicity and then warps everything: time, memory, structure, meaning. It's an experience that refuses to explain itself in neat lines. It's bold, disorienting, philosophical, and deeply disturbing. And if you try to map the story out like a traditional plot, you'll find yourself as lost as the sisters in that haunted house. That's the point. You don't watch Heretic. You fall into it. Alright, buckle in, because Heretic doesn't just give you characters. It gives you fully fleshed, bleeding, breathing, unraveling human beings who each carry the weight of their own spiritual wars. This film doesn't use characters as props to move the plot forward. Instead, it builds the entire story around their internal states, how they fracture, shift, confront the shadows of their beliefs, and how their deepest convictions either save them or destroy them. The more time you spend with these characters, the more the horror becomes personal. You're not scared for them. You're scared as them. Let's start with Sister Paxton, our emotional compass, even if she doesn't know it. She walks into the film with a quiet, confident energy, the kind that suggests she's been through something. Her gaze lingers a little too long. Her prayers feel like armor. From the outside, she looks like someone fully in control of her faith, someone who knows why she's here and what she believes. But that's the trick. That stillness hides a roiling sea of doubt. Paxton is someone who's used faith as a structure to hold herself together. Not out of blind devotion, but out of desperation. Her character isn't just the faithful one. She's the wounded one. And throughout the film, that wound is picked at, slowly, methodically, until it bleeds into everything she does. What's incredible is how Paxton's arc isn't a straight line from belief to unbelief or strength to weakness. It's circular. She's constantly being pulled back into what she's trying to escape. Mr. Reed doesn't break her with violence. He breaks her with questions, with precision attacks on the cracks in her belief system, with reflections of her own hypocrisy. There's a scene, you'll know it when you see it, where Reed says something that should be harmless, but Paxton's reaction says it all. Her composure shatters for just a second, and in that moment, you see the depth of her internal struggle. That's not just good writing, that's character excavation. Then there's Sister Barnes. She's more nervous, more naive, more unsure. At first, you think she's just following Paxton's lead, like a junior partner still figuring out how the world works. But what Barnes lacks in spiritual confidence, she makes up for in raw emotional drive. And as the film progresses, something wild happens. Barnes doesn't just develop, she hardens. She goes from timid to ruthless in a way that feels tragically believable. When things start to spiral, she clings tighter to dogma. Where Paxton questions, Barnes doubles down. Where Paxton falls silent, Barnes becomes loud. Her transformation isn't about growth, it's about fear calcifying into fanaticism. She's not afraid of dying, she's afraid of being wrong. And the relationship between the two, that's the real meat of the movie. In the beginning, they feel like sisters not just in faith but in rhythm. They walk in sync. They speak in tandem. They trust each other. But the house and Mr. Reed changes everything. Their unity starts to erode the moment ambiguity enters the room. Paxton's slow drift into self-examination threatens Barnes' rigid sense of order. Barnes' increasing zealotry begins to make Paxton feel like she's losing her anchor. It's not a dramatic explosion. It's a slow unraveling of emotional intimacy. They stop finishing each other's sentences. They stop making eye contact. You can feel the silence between them stretching wider with every scene. And this isn't a one-sided dynamic. They hurt each other. They challenge each other. At one point, one of them makes a decision that feels like a betrayal, and the pain of that moment is worse than any supernatural threat. It's that feeling of realizing the person you trusted most is now a mirror reflecting your failure. It's not just sad, it's devastating. You realize this house didn't need monsters. It just needed doubt to do the damage. And now, we have to talk about Mr. Reed. Oh yes, he is the still point in the spinning room. He doesn't change his expression much. He doesn't raise his voice. He rarely moves with urgency. But every time he opens his mouth, the tension in the room spikes. He's the kind of character who makes you lean in, even as every nerve in your body screams that something's wrong. What's so terrifying about Reed is that he doesn't lie. He tells truths, just not the kind people want to hear. He never threatens, but somehow you feel like you're always one sentence away from total collapse. Reed's character isn't about shock, he's about erosion. He sees through the sisters immediately. He spots the cracks in their armor before they even admit they exist. His interactions with Paxton are especially revealing. He knows she's built her faith on grief and trauma. He respects it, but he also dismantles it, gently, with words that don't sound cruel but cut like razors. With Barnes, it's different. He treats her like a toy. He sees how much she needs control, so he starts to twist the world around her. Just a little at first, then more, until she starts to believe her own delusions. And let's not forget, we're never quite sure who, or what, Reed actually is. Is he just a manipulator? A cultist? Something more? The film never tells you outright, but it does show you what kind of power he holds. The power to completely shift someone's identity using nothing but conversation and atmosphere. He is the kind of character who doesn't have to lift a finger to destroy someone. He just waits for them to do it themselves. Together, these three characters create an emotional hurricane. Every scene between them is like a chemical reaction, volatile, unpredictable, magnetic. You don't watch them evolve in isolation. You watch them bounce off each other, grind against each other, fall apart because of each other. Their arcs don't just intersect, they collide. And by the end of the film, the people who entered that house are long gone. What's left? Ghosts of former selves. Belief systems turned inside out. A question hanging in the air. Who are you without what you believe? So no, Heretic doesn't just give you characters. It gives you souls in crisis. It gives you a psychological x-ray of what happens when devotion meets deception. It gives you three unforgettable portraits of faith, identity, and manipulation, and then dares you to look away. You won't. Alright, let's go deeper, because the performances in Heretic are not just powerful, they're precise emotional surgeries disguised as acting. These aren't performances that rely on bombast or theatrical breakdowns. No one's throwing things or collapsing into melodrama. Instead, the actors weaponize subtlety. They use stillness, breath, silence, and restraint like scalpel blades, peeling back layers of character until you're not watching people perform, you're watching people bleed. Let's talk about Kate Mara, because what she does with Sister Paxton is nothing short of haunting. Her performance doesn't ask you to sympathize, it demands you inhabit her. From the first frame, she embodies a woman who's trying her hardest not to come undone. There's a weight to every movement she makes. She doesn't just walk into a room, she carries herself through it, as if she's afraid she might break the air. Her facial expressions barely shift, but somehow, in that stillness, she transmits volumes. One raised eyebrow, one flicker of doubt in her eyes, and suddenly you know everything she's thinking but refusing to say out loud. What's so captivating is how she balances Paxton's outer strength with her inner fragility. Mara doesn't play her as an obvious victim of trauma or a naive missionary. She plays her like someone who has built her entire identity around the idea of spiritual control. She needs the rituals, the prayers, the structure of faith not because it comforts her, but because it gives her boundaries. When those boundaries start to dissolve, Mara doesn't scream or cry, she simply tightens. You see it in her jaw, in the way her voice lowers half a pitch, in the way she stops meeting Barnes' eyes. Her deterioration is internalized, and that makes it even more painful to witness. There's one scene in particular, a quiet, tension-drenched conversation with Mr. Reed, where she says almost nothing but her silence cracks. And in that moment, without a single tear or outburst, she breaks your heart. Nell Tiger Free as Sister Barnes is like a slow-motion emotional explosion. At first, she plays Barnes with this open-faced vulnerability. She's softer, more reactive, more dependent on structure and affirmation. You think she's just a supporting character, the younger partner, the tag-along novice still learning the ropes. But oh, how wrong that assumption turns out to be. Because Nell Tiger Free pulls off something truly extraordinary, she turns that vulnerability into steel. Scene by scene, her eyes get harder, her voice gets colder, her sense of morality starts twisting itself into knots. What makes her performance electric is that you can see the shift happening in real time. One scene she's hesitating to speak, the next she's staring down, evil with fire in her voice, but it's not confidence, it's conviction. A desperate, dangerous conviction rooted in fear and insecurity. Free manages to transform Barnes from a nervous follower into a zealot without ever making it feel forced. That evolution is so real, so grounded, that it becomes scary, not in a supernatural way, but in a deeply human way. She embodies how belief can curdle, how fear can harden into righteousness. And the moment she begins to distrust Paxton, that subtle change in how she looks at her, how she stops mirroring her body language, how her tone becomes clipped and formal, it's a gut punch. You feel the betrayal before a word is spoken. That's the magic of her performance. She weaponizes restraint. She knows when to whisper, when to go still, and when to finally let the storm loose. Now let's address the scene stealer, Hugh Grant. Yes, that Hugh Grant. Forget every charming British gentleman you've ever seen in play. This isn't that Hugh. This is Hugh Grant with the brakes off and the mask on. A performance that feels like it's coming from another dimension entirely. He plays Mr. Reed with the unnerving calm of someone who knows exactly what he's doing. No shouting, No theatrics, just a soft-spoken menace that seeps into every word like poison in tea. Every line of dialogue he delivers feels like it's coated in honey and laced with arsenic. He's not just unsettling, he's hypnotic. You don't want to listen to him, but you can't help yourself. The brilliance of Grant's performance lies in his ability to maintain absolute control over a scene without physically doing much. He never rushes. He rarely raises his voice. And yet, whenever he speaks, the temperature in the room drops. He has this terrifying ability to say the most outrageous, heretical, psychologically invasive things with a casual shrug, like he's just sharing an observation. You start to dread his presence, not because you fear what he might do, but because you fear what he might say. His lines feel like they were designed to dig under your skin and set up camp there. And his chemistry with both Mara and Free is exquisite. With Paxton, he's the soft interrogator, pulling apart her armor thread by thread. With Barnes, he's the silent mirror, letting her do the damage herself. Even the smaller roles, the brief supporting characters who appear in flashbacks or during key moments, are executed with purpose. You can tell the casting department wasn't looking for filler, they were looking for faces that told stories. Every side character feels like they belong to this dark little universe. They have their own secrets, their own sadness, and it adds layers to the atmosphere. Nobody feels out of place. Even the silent characters carry tension with their body language alone. That's how tightly the film's performance direction is woven. The real achievement here is how unified the performances are in tone, yet how varied they are in rhythm. Everyone is playing on the same emotional frequency, but each character pulses differently. Mara is a slow fuse, Free is a tightening coil, Grant is the ticking clock. And together, they create a kind of emotional orchestra that plays one long, unsettling note of dread. So when we talk about the acting in Heretic, we're not talking about just delivering lines. We're talking about full psychological immersion. This is method-level intensity without the showboating. These are actors who live in the haunted spaces of their characters. They wear doubt like skin. They breathe fear like air. And the result is a film that doesn't need jump scares or loud stingers to scare you, it just needs them. Let's open this one up all the way, because what Scott, Beck, and Bryan would pull off with Heretic isn't just direction, it's straight-up alchemy. This isn't about a director calling action and cut. This is two filmmakers playing psychological chess with the audience from the first frame to the last. Every moment, every breath, every flickering light in Heretic feels engineered to get under your skin and settle there, like a doctrine you don't remember learning but suddenly can't forget. Beck and Woods aren't just telling a story, they're crafting an experience, and it's one that hits harder the longer you sit with it. First, let's talk about tone, because that's the real magic trick. So many horror movies get this wrong. They dip in and out of mood, throw in a gag here, a jump scare there, and hope you'll stick around for the climax. Not Heretic. From minute one, the tone is locked in. You're not eased into dread, you're dropped into it. There's this immediate, almost suffocating stillness. No cheap scare. No opening bloodbath. Just unease. And that unease doesn't lift. It lingers. Every scene, every line of dialogue, every camera angle is dipped in that same thick, oppressive atmosphere. It feels like you're walking through a fog that doesn't just obscure the world, it rewrites it. Beck and Woods know exactly what they're doing with this. They're not just directing scenes, they're designing a ritual. This is horror that doesn't rely on gore or loud noises. It relies on rhythm, on symmetry, on pacing that feels like an incantation. You almost don't realize how much they're controlling you until it's too late. That long hallway shot that just keeps going. That slow pan across a face that doesn't move. That door that closes just off-screen. They use what they don't show as much as what they do. You're not afraid because of what you see. You're afraid because of what your brain is forced to imagine. And that's 10 times more effective. Let's talk composition, because these guys don't just know how to frame a shot, they know how to weaponize it. Nothing feels random. Every angle, every lens choice, every cut feels deliberate. The camera doesn't move unless there's a reason. And when it does move, oh boy, you feel it. They'll go from a static, serene shot to a creeping, invasive dolly-in, and suddenly you're hyper-aware of your own heartbeat. They know how to use the space around characters to reflect what's going on inside them. Wide, empty corridors for spiritual isolation. Tight, claustrophobic rooms for inner turmoil. off-center framing to evoke imbalance. You're not just watching characters, you're trapped in their heads. Lighting is another storytelling device here. Forget dramatic color gels or exaggerated shadows. The lighting in Heretic is clinical, sterile, and unforgiving. The convent setting is bathed in cold whites and grays that strip away any sense of comfort. Even in the daytime, nothing feels safe. There's no warm glow, no cozy corner, just light that feels like an X-ray, exposing, judging, watching. And when darkness comes, it's not stylized noir blackness. It's void. It's emptiness that seems to swallow detail. They use negative space to terrifying effect, allowing the audience to stare into shadows for just a little too long, wondering what might stare back. And then there's the pacing. Oh, the delicious, agonizing, brilliantly controlled pacing. Beck and Woods are not in a rush, and that's exactly what makes it work. Every scene is allowed to breathe. There's no fat here, but it's not lean either. It's measured. And what's fascinating is how they stretch tension without ever tipping into boredom. You're not checking your watch, you're clenching your fists. The dialogue scenes are built like pressure cookers. A question here, a glance there, a pause that lasts just a second too long, and suddenly you're spiraling. By the time anything supernatural actually happens, you're already wound tighter than a drum. Now here's where it gets really interesting, their restraint. Most horror directors want you to feel the genre. Beck and Woods dare you to question whether this even is a horror movie until it's too late. They play it straight. No musical stingers. No gotcha camera moves. They let scenes play out in real time. You sit in the room with these characters. You feel their discomfort. You squirm when they do. And when the horror does hit, it lands like a betrayal. Because you were lulled into thinking maybe, just maybe, this was all in their heads. And then suddenly it isn't. And the impact is twice as brutal because of the trust they built up beforehand. Even the performances feel shaped with the precision of a sculptor's chisel. This is not a set where actors just show up and do their thing. You can see Beck and Wood's fingerprints in the performances, the measured cadence of the dialogue, the eerie lack of overreaction, the way pauses stretch like elastic bands before snapping. Kate Mara and Nell Tiger Free are clearly directed to play with duality. Faith versus doubt, control versus surrender, love versus fear, and their body language reflects that internal tug-of-war in a way that feels both poetic and devastating. Hugh Grant, he's a sermon in human form. And you know Beck and Woods helped him fine-tune that balance of charisma and venom until it was just right. What elevates their direction even further is the vision. This isn't a movie that feels cobbled together from other horror hits. It doesn't follow the trendy A24 formula. It doesn't lean into 90s nostalgia. It doesn't even seem interested in being liked. It's singular, controlled, confident. You can tell Beck and Woods knew exactly what movie they were making, and they didn't care if it made you uncomfortable. In fact, they wanted you to be uncomfortable. They want you to squirm, to doubt, to reflect. This is psychological horror at its most surgical, stripping away the familiar and replacing it with dread that lingers like incense in a locked chapel. Ultimately, this isn't just about direction. It's about possession. Beck and Woods don't just guide this film, they inhabit it. And once you've seen Heretic, so do you. Cinematography in Heretic is a masterclass in visual storytelling that feels less like watching a movie and more like stepping into a living, breathing nightmare. Brett Jutkiewicz, the cinematographer, doesn't just frame shots, he creates an entire sensory landscape that pulls you deep into the film's eerie world. Every choice he makes with the camera, whether it's angle, movement, lighting, or color, works together to weave a dense tapestry of mood, tension, and unsettling beauty that sticks with you long after the credits roll. Right from the start, the way Heretic is shot makes you feel like an invisible observer in a place that's both sacred and sinister. The camera angles are a quiet rebellion against normalcy. Instead of perfectly centered compositions that feel balanced and safe, Jutkiewicz frequently pushes characters to the edges of the frame, or uses subtle Dutch tilts that leave you just off kilter. It's not disorienting in a cheap, gimmicky way. It's a creeping discomfort that mirrors the instability and internal chaos brewing within the story. You begin to sense the world tilting beneath the character's feet before anything overtly frightening happens, and that undercurrent keeps you tense throughout. Lighting in Heretic is downright unforgiving, but in the most compelling way possible. This isn't the moody, shadow-heavy horror lighting where dark corners hide jump scares. No, this lighting is clinical and sterile, often bathed in harsh whites and icy blues that transform the convent into a cold, austere fortress rather than a place of refuge. It exposes every flaw, every vulnerability, leaving the characters, and by extension the audience, feeling stripped bare and exposed. When the darkness finally creeps in, it's not just an absence of light, it becomes an almost tactile force, swallowing sound and safety. The way the lighting shifts from blinding clarity to engulfing shadows is so precise that you feel the emotional impact without a single word spoken. Framing is another tool wielded with surgical precision. Jukiewicz uses wide shots of the convent's endless corridors and empty rooms to create a sense of isolation and confinement, while intimate close-ups on faces reveal the smallest flicker of doubt or fear. The symmetry in many shots creates a hypnotic order that clashes violently with the chaos underneath the surface, creating a tension that's almost unbearable. You'll find yourself fixating on empty chairs, half-open doors, and shadowy corners that the camera lingers on just long enough to make your imagination fill in the blanks. These moments are as terrifying as any monster because they force you to confront the unknown. One of the most visually arresting moments comes when Sister Paxton stands alone in the convent courtyard at dusk. The fading natural light casts long, claw-like shadows that stretch across the stone, emphasizing her isolation and vulnerability. The composition here is breathtaking, a perfect blend of beauty and dread. It's like looking at a painting that hides secrets in every brushstroke. This scene encapsulates the cinematography's ability to balance aesthetic beauty with emotional weight, making the quiet moments just as impactful as the loud ones. Reflections and glass surfaces become recurring visual motifs throughout the film, used to fracture and multiply reality. Characters are often caught in distorted reflections, caught between the person they present to the world and the fears or sins lurking beneath the surface. This use of mirrors and windows does more than look cool. It deepens the themes of identity, faith, and deception. It makes you question what's real and what's illusion, pulling you deeper into the psychological maze the film constructs. Camera movement in Heretic is measured and deliberate, used sparingly but with immense impact. When the camera glides slowly down a hallway or pushes in on a character's face, it feels like an exhale, building tension that tightens your chest. These movements aren't flashy or showy. They're ritualistic and almost hypnotic, perfectly in tune with the film's tone. Each camera move peels back layers of a story and the characters' psyches, revealing hidden fears and fractured faiths in subtle, powerful ways. Depth of field plays a quiet but crucial role in shaping the viewer's focus and emotional engagement. Jukiewicz often blurs backgrounds just enough to isolate a character's expression or a small, telling detail, a trembling hand, a flicker of hesitation, a tear slipping down a cheek. This shallow focus forces you to confront the raw human emotions that ripple beneath the surface, turning everyday moments into charged, intimate experiences. It's like the camera is zooming in on the soul, letting you see the cracks in the carefully constructed facades. Color grading in Heretic is restrained but highly intentional. The overall palette is muted, dominated by grays, whites, and cold blues that reinforce the film's sterile, oppressive atmosphere. But when bursts of color appear, a flickering candle flame, a stained glass window's reds and greens, the deep hue of a religious artifact, they carry symbolic weight. These pops of color act like visual exclamation points, highlighting moments of spiritual significance or emotional breakthrough. They're never just decoration, but integral parts of the storytelling. What truly sets the cinematography of Heretic apart is how all these elements, angles, lighting, framing, movement, focus, and color work together in perfect harmony to create a visual language that goes beyond simple illustration. The camera doesn't just show you the story, it immerses you in the psychological and emotional landscape of the film. It invites you to feel the weight of isolation, the creeping dread of doubt, and the flickering hope of faith in every frame. Watching Heretic is like stepping into a beautifully haunting dream where every shadow holds a secret and every ray of light exposes a truth. The cinematography doesn't just complement the narrative, it is the narrative, painted with light, shadow, and an unrelenting sense of tension. It's a silent storyteller that grips you tightly, making you complicit in the unfolding horror and unable to look away. Editing and pacing in Heretic function like a carefully choreographed dance, where every step is intentional, every pause charged with meaning, and every movement designed to pull you deeper into the film's haunting atmosphere. From the very opening moments, it's clear this is not a movie that rushes to spill its secrets. Instead, it moves with a deliberate, measured cadence, like a slow, rhythmic pulse that lures you in and holds you captive. The editors have crafted a flow that mirrors the psychological unraveling at the heart of the story, balancing stillness and motion in a way that feels both natural and unnervingly precise. What really stands out in Heretic's editing is its remarkable restraint. The film isn't interested in the typical rapid-fire cuts that dominate modern thrillers and horrors. Instead, it lets scenes breathe, often holding on long takes that allow the tension to simmer just beneath the surface. These lingering shots aren't just about showing what's happening, they're about creating an emotional atmosphere. You might find yourself staring at a character's face for what feels like an eternity, watching tiny expressions flicker, an almost imperceptible twitch, a brief glance away, a subtle shift in posture. And in these moments, the film's emotional depth blossoms. The editing forces you to become hyper-aware, turning the quiet and mundane into something charged with suspense and meaning. Transitions between scenes flow with an elegant smoothness, avoiding jarring cuts or disorienting jumps. Instead, the film feels like a continuous journey, where one moment melts seamlessly into the next. This fluidity enhances the dreamlike, almost hypnotic quality of the narrative. You're not jolted out of the story, but gently carried along by its mood and rhythm, which helps maintain a deep sense of immersion. The editing here is like a guide leading you through a labyrinth, steady, sure, but always keeping you on edge, unsure of what lies around the corner. When the story demands a surge of tension, the editing tightens and quickens with subtle precision. Cuts become shorter, movements more urgent, but never so rapid that you lose your footing. This change in tempo acts like a pulse quickening in response to rising fear or imminent danger. It's a delicate balance, enough to make your heart race, but not so much that it feels chaotic or overwhelming. Then just as suddenly, the pace eases back, pulling you into slower, more contemplative moments that let the emotional weight sink in. This ebb and flow create a hypnotic push-pull dynamic, mimicking the character's own battles between calm and panic, control and chaos. Sound and silence are integral parts of this rhythmic editing. The film often uses long stretches without dialogue or music, letting natural sounds, footsteps, creaking doors, breathing, fill the space. These quiet interludes are edited with such care that they feel anything but empty. Instead, they become loaded with anticipation, making every small noise feel amplified and significant. The silence stretches out like a taut wire, and you can almost feel yourself holding your breath, waiting for the slightest hint of movement or sound to break the stillness. It's an editing choice that amplifies the tension without relying on cheap jump scares, making the horror feel more psychological and immersive. Repetition and subtle callbacks in the editing also deepen the film's themes and emotional resonance. The editors revisit certain shots or moments with slight variations, creating a looping effect that echoes the character's obsessive fears and inner turmoil. This cyclical approach to editing reinforces the sense of entrapment and inevitability, as if the characters and the audience are caught in a spiraling maze of doubt and dread. It's a sophisticated technique that adds texture and complexity to the narrative, making the viewing experience richer and more layered. When Heretic reaches its emotionally or supernaturally intense moments, the editing slows down to let these scenes breathe fully. The film resists the urge to rush past these pivotal points, instead lingering on visuals and performances to maximize their impact. This patient pacing lets the atmosphere thicken and the emotional stakes rise organically, giving the audience time to absorb the weight of what's unfolding. The editing here acts like a magnifying glass, bringing every subtle detail into sharp focus and allowing the horror to seep in gradually but inexorably. Another interesting aspect is how the editing shapes the film's temporal flow. The narrative occasionally plays with time, weaving past and present together in ways that can feel disorienting but are always intentional. The transitions between these timelines are handled with finesse, using dissolves, fades, and carefully placed cuts that blend memories and realities. This fluid manipulation of time adds to the film's psychological depth, making the audience question what is real and what might be a reflection of trauma or fear. Overall, the editing and pacing of Heretic don't just serve the story, they become the story's heartbeat. The rhythm of the cuts and transitions mirrors the emotional journey of the characters, guiding the audience through waves of suspense, dread, and moments of fragile hope. It's a pacing that demands patience but rewards it with a deeply immersive and unsettling experience. Watching Heretic is like being caught in a slow, relentless tide, sometimes calm and steady, sometimes crashing and wild, but always pulling you further into its dark, mesmerizing depths. The editor's craftsmanship ensures that you stay hooked, not with flashy tricks or cheap thrills, but through a masterful control of time, space, and emotion that makes every frame count. The soundtrack and score of Heretic go far beyond the traditional role of background music. They emerge as vital, living elements that breathe life into the film's eerie and immersive atmosphere. Composer Mark Corvin masterfully creates a sonic world that feels both ancient and unsettling, where sound acts almost like a character in its own right, shaping your emotional experience and drawing you ever deeper into the dark, ritualistic heart of the story. This is not a typical horror soundtrack filled with predictable jump scares or overwhelming crescendos. Instead, it's a complex, layered soundscape that blends subtlety with intensity, enhancing the film's psychological depth and chilling suspense at every turn. Right from the opening sequence, the music sets a tone that's hauntingly ethereal and palpably tense. Low-frequency drones hum beneath scenes like an ominous undercurrent, creating a pervasive sense of unease that quietly gnaws at your nerves. These sonic vibrations feel like a slow, rhythmic heartbeat pulsing beneath the surface of the narrative, reminding you that something hidden and dangerous is always lurking just beyond your sight. The way these drones interlace with sparse, fragile melodies gives the score a ritualistic, almost spiritual quality, as if you've been invited not just to witness a story, but to participate in an ancient, dark ceremony where every note carries weight and meaning. Corvin's choice of instrumentation is strikingly unconventional and deeply effective in evoking the film's atmosphere. Traditional orchestral elements such as strings and piano mingle with more unusual sounds, metallic clangs that echo like distant bells in a forgotten chapel, whispered chants that seem to rise from shadowy corners, and otherworldly textures that teeter between the sacred and the sinister. This eclectic sonic palette perfectly mirrors Heretic's thematic conflict, a battle between faith and horror, the known and the unknowable. The interplay of these sounds shifts from harmony to dissonance, reflecting the inner turmoil and external dangers faced by the characters. Recurring musical motifs play a subtle but powerful role throughout the film, weaving thematic threads that anchor the story's emotional and narrative arcs. These motifs are not flashy or intrusive. Rather, they creep into your subconscious gradually, repeated in quiet variations that build familiarity and unease simultaneously. You might not consciously register their presence at first, but over time they create a rich tapestry of sound that deepens your connection to the characters and their struggles. These motifs become auditory landmarks that guide you through the film's labyrinthine plot, making the music an integral part of the storytelling itself. Silence is wielded with remarkable precision alongside the music, creating a dynamic tension that amplifies the film's psychological impact. Rather than filling every moment with sound, Heretic deliberately allows scenes to breathe in near-complete silence. These quiet spaces are anything but empty. They become charged with expectation, forcing your ears to pick up every subtle ambient noise, the scrape of footsteps on old wood, the distant drip of water, the hushed breath of a character caught in fear. The absence of music in these moments heightens your awareness and amplifies the tension, making the eventual return of sound all the more jarring and effective. This thoughtful balance between sound and silence keeps the audience suspended in a state of fragile calm, constantly anticipating the next shift in the sonic landscape. When the film reaches moments of peak intensity or supernatural horror, the score swells into dissonant, almost physical waves of sound. These crescendos vibrate through the room and reverberate in your chest, creating a visceral experience that's less about volume and more about emotional impact. The music twists and fractures unpredictably here, mimicking the chaos and terror unfolding on screen. These powerful bursts of sound don't just accompany the action, they embody it, plunging you headfirst into the characters' spiraling fears and the dark forces at play. It's a masterclass in using music not just to support but to become an expression of the film's emotional core. At the same time, the score knows when to hold back, never overpowering the narrative or the actors' performances. It blends seamlessly with the film's pacing and mood, enhancing key emotional beats without distracting from dialogue or visuals. This subtlety is crucial. It allows the music to function as an invisible thread weaving through the story, binding everything together without calling attention to itself. The soundtrack feels less like an addition and more like an organic extension of the world on screen, perfectly attuned to its rhythm and tone. In the quieter, more introspective scenes, the score shifts gears into a minimalist mode, employing soft piano notes, delicate string passages, and ethereal choral echoes that evoke vulnerability and introspection. These moments provide a stark contrast to the more intense sections, offering emotional respite and adding depth to the characters' internal journeys. The music here acts like a mirror, reflecting the fragility and complexity of the human psyche amid the film's supernatural horrors. This nuanced handling of tone enriches the film's texture and keeps the audience emotionally invested throughout. The soundtrack also plays a key role in shaping the film's spatial and temporal dimensions. Through the use of echoing sounds, reverberations, and fading motifs, the score enhances the feeling of vast, empty spaces and the passage of time, making the environments feel alive with unseen forces. It amplifies the film's sense of isolation and disorientation, turning ordinary settings into places of mystery and menace. This sonic design heightens the immersive quality of Heretic, pulling viewers deeper into its world on both a conscious and subconscious level. Overall, the music in Heretic is far more than a mere accompaniment. It is a vital force that permeates every scene, saturating the film with a dense, haunting atmosphere that lingers long after the credits roll. Mark Horvan's score and the film's carefully curated soundscape invite the audience to listen closely, revealing new layers and emotions with each viewing. This soundtrack doesn't just enhance the mood or underline the story. It becomes the very essence of the film's identity, wrapping viewers in an invisible, eerie embrace that resonates on a primal level. The music is an essential part of the film's power, transforming Heretic from a visual experience into a fully immersive journey through fear, faith, and the unknown. Heretic isn't just a chilling horror flick that aims to startle you with eerie visuals and supernatural frights. It's a film that digs deep into some profound, layered themes that resonate far beyond the scares. At its core, the movie is a meditation on faith, fear, morality, and the human condition, woven into the fabric of the story in ways that keep your mind buzzing long after the screen goes dark. These themes aren't slapped on for show. They emerge naturally from the characters' struggles and the unsettling world they inhabit, making the film rich with meaning and emotional weight. One of the most compelling and persistent themes throughout Heretic is the battle between faith and doubt. The film places this conflict front and center, exploring how belief can be both a refuge and a prison. Several characters turn to religion or spiritual conviction to protect themselves against the inexplicable horrors they face, clinging to rituals, prayers, and doctrines as shields against darkness. Yet, the film doesn't portray faith as a simple, unshakable force. Instead, it highlights the fragility of belief, how fear can shake even the strongest convictions, and how doubt can gnaw away at the soul. This nuanced portrayal invites viewers to consider their own relationship with faith. Is belief a source of strength or vulnerability? Can it sometimes blind us to uncomfortable truths? This tension between trust and skepticism adds layers of psychological complexity, making the horror feel as much internal as external. Closely intertwined with the theme of faith is the exploration of sin, guilt, and redemption. Characters in Heretic aren't just battling external demons, they're grappling with the weight of their own past misdeeds and moral failings. These internal struggles manifest almost like ghosts haunting their minds, blurring the line between supernatural horror and psychological torment. The film suggests that true evil is not only something lurking outside, but something that can fester within, born of regret, shame, and unatone mistakes. This duality makes the story richer and more relatable, Viewers find themselves empathizing with characters wrestling not only against monsters, but also against their own darker impulses and the consequences of their actions. The film doesn't offer easy answers about forgiveness or salvation, instead presenting redemption as a complex, often painful journey. Another powerful theme running through Heretic is the danger of forbidden knowledge. The story warns that some secrets are better left undiscovered, that the pursuit of hidden truths can open doors that should remain closed. As characters peel back layers of mystery, they uncover revelations that unsettle their understanding of reality and shake the foundations of their world. This theme taps into a classic horror motif, but is handled with fresh subtlety here. It raises fascinating questions about curiosity and consequence. How much should we seek to know? What price are we willing to pay for enlightenment? The film's treatment of forbidden knowledge reflects a deep ambivalence. Knowledge can empower but also corrupt, illuminate but also destroy. Isolation and alienation are themes that permeate both the physical and emotional landscape of Heretic. The characters often find themselves cut off, whether trapped in remote, claustrophobic locations or emotionally estranged from one another. This pervasive sense of loneliness heightens the film's tension and dread, reminding us how isolation can magnify fear and make danger feel inescapable. But it's not just physical isolation. The film explores emotional isolation too, how fear, guilt, and mistrust create invisible walls between people, leaving them vulnerable and alone in their suffering. This theme adds a deeply human element to the horror, grounding the supernatural elements in recognizable feelings of alienation. Power and corruption also lurk beneath the surface, adding a socio-political dimension to the film's thematic tapestry. Heretic suggests that evil is not only something supernatural, but can also manifest through the misuse of authority and control. Figures who exploit faith or manipulate others for personal gain represent a different kind of darkness, one grounded in human cruelty and ambition. This layer of meaning makes the film more than just a ghost story. It becomes a commentary on how power can corrupt and how fear can be wielded as a tool of oppression. It challenges the audience to look beyond monsters to the real-world horrors found in human behavior. The film also plays with the idea of cyclical history, how trauma, evil, and conflict can repeat across generations if left unchallenged. This cycle is reflected in the story's structure, characters' experiences, and recurring motifs, suggesting that some battles between light and darkness are never truly won, only postponed. This cyclical nature adds a mythic quality to the narrative, as if the characters are part of a larger, ongoing struggle that transcends their individual lives. It invites viewers to think about the ways in which history, personal and collective, shapes present realities and the importance of confronting past demons to break destructive patterns. What makes these themes particularly effective in Heretic is how organically they are integrated into the film's story and atmosphere. The film doesn't preach or hit you over the head with messages. Instead, it plants subtle seeds through dialogue, visual symbolism, and character development that encourage reflection. The themes ripple beneath the surface, inviting viewers to engage actively with the material and draw their own conclusions. This approach respects the audience's intelligence and creates a more immersive and rewarding experience. Ultimately, Heretic uses its horror framework as a powerful vehicle to explore the complexities of belief, fear, morality, and the human psyche. It challenges viewers to consider what lies beneath the surface of the terrifying events on screen and to grapple with questions that are deeply relevant to our own lives. The film's ability to balance chilling suspense with rich thematic content makes it stand out, offering more than just thrills. It offers a haunting, thoughtful exploration of the shadows we all carry within. The visual effects and CGI in Heretic truly stand out because of how thoughtfully and skillfully they are woven into the film's fabric, creating an immersive and chilling experience that never feels gimmicky or overblown. One of the first things you notice is how naturally the effects blend with the film's world, making the supernatural elements feel like an organic part of the environment rather than something pasted on in post-production. This kind of seamless integration is no accident. It's the result of a careful balance between traditional practical effects and modern digital techniques, each used where they shine best to serve the story's eerie tone and atmosphere. Starting with the practical effects, Heretic leans heavily on hands-on craftsmanship to build its unsettling creatures, cursed artifacts, and grotesque transformations. This choice grounds the horror in a tangible reality that CGI alone often struggles to replicate. When you see a monster up close, the texture of its skin, the movement of its muscles, or the subtle flicker of its eyes have a convincing weight that makes it feel like a living, breathing entity. This physicality heightens the horror because it appeals directly to our senses. There's a visceral, almost tactile fear that comes from knowing that what you're watching was painstakingly created in the real world, layer by layer. The use of makeup, prosthetics, animatronics, and detailed costume design adds depth and authenticity that digital effects sometimes lack, anchoring the film's supernatural elements in something you can almost reach out and touch. But practical effects alone wouldn't be enough to capture the full scope of Heretic's chilling vision, and this is where the CGI enters with subtlety and precision. Unlike some horror films that rely heavily on flashy CGI to create jump scares or spectacle, Heretic uses digital effects sparingly and always with a purpose. The CGI enhances moments that practical effects simply can't handle, like ethereal wisps of ghostly energy, supernatural distortions in the environment, or creatures moving in ways that defy natural physics. These digital touches add an intangible quality to the horror, making it feel otherworldly without ever crossing into the realm of the unbelievable or cartoonish. What's especially impressive is how the CGI and practical effects often work hand in hand, creating visuals that are not only convincing but hauntingly beautiful in their detail. For example, a creature might be built with a prosthetic base, then enhanced with subtle CGI to add flickering shadows, glowing eyes, or shifting textures that wouldn't be possible otherwise. This hybrid approach allows the film to capture the best of both worlds, practical effects' grounded authenticity paired with CGI's flexibility and imaginative scope. The result is a visual experience that feels complete and richly textured, pulling the viewer deeper into the unsettling atmosphere. Lighting and color grading play a huge role in making the effects feel natural. The film's use of shadow, muted color palettes, and carefully controlled lighting often masks the seams where practical and digital effects meet, ensuring nothing feels jarringly out of place. Dimly lit corridors, flickering candles, and misty, fog-laden settings provide the perfect canvas for the visual effects to breathe. The interplay between light and shadow enhances the sense of mystery and dread, making the supernatural elements seem like they could be lurking just out of sight. This clever design means that even when the effects are complex, they don't feel artificial. Instead, they appear as natural extensions of the film's eerie world. When it comes to creature design and environmental effects, Heretic impresses with its meticulous attention to detail. The monsters aren't just scary, they have personality, history, and texture. You notice the way their skin glistens, the subtle twitch of a claw, or the faint, almost imperceptible movements that give them a life beyond simple scare tactics. The CGI subtly enhances these traits, adding realism to movements or expressions that would be hard to pull off practically. This attention to detail makes the creatures feel like more than just obstacles or frights. They become characters themselves, part of the film's rich mythology. Environmental effects, such as eerie fog rolling through graveyards, flickering supernatural lights, or mysterious symbols glowing faintly in the dark, also rely on CGI, but in a way that complements the natural world rather than overwhelming it. These elements add layers of mysticism and tension, deepening the viewer's immersion without ever distracting from the story. They help establish the film's tone, one of creeping dread and uncanny menace, without resorting to cheap tricks or excessive digital spectacle. Even in sequences where reality seems to bend, moments of supernatural distortion or ritualistic power, the CGI is employed with finesse. Rather than overwhelming the viewer with dazzling visuals, the effects are subtle, almost whispering their presence rather than shouting. This restraint heightens the suspense and reinforces the idea that the horror in Heretic is as much about what is unseen and implied as what is explicitly shown. The digital effects serve the narrative and emotional beats, enhancing the unsettling atmosphere while keeping the focus on the characters' experiences and reactions. What ties all these elements together is the film's clear understanding that the most effective horror doesn't rely on over-the-top visual spectacle, but on building an immersive, believable world where the supernatural can feel both terrifying and real. The blend of practical and digital effects in Heretic exemplifies this philosophy perfectly. Instead of flashy, attention-grabbing CGI, the film opts for a measured, artful approach where effects enhance the story and mood rather than overshadow them. This results in a visual style that's both hauntingly beautiful and genuinely creepy, inviting the audience to lose themselves in a dark, mysterious world where every shadow holds a secret. In the end, the visual effects and CGI in Heretic aren't just technical achievements, they're storytelling tools that deepen the film's impact. By balancing old-school craftsmanship with modern technology, the filmmakers create a haunting, immersive experience that feels alive and unpredictable. The effects don't just show you the horror, they make you feel it, creeping under your skin in a way that lingers long after the credits roll. The set design and locations in Heretic go far beyond just providing a backdrop for the story. They actively breathe life into the film's eerie, unsettling world, crafting an environment that feels palpably real and charged with atmosphere. From the moment you step into the film's universe, the settings grab you, not just visually but emotionally, making you feel like you've wandered into a place where every creaking floorboard, every flickering candle, and every faded piece of furniture tells its own story. This immersive approach to production design pulls the audience deeper into the narrative, allowing the physical world to become a character in its own right, one that shapes and reflects the unfolding drama. One of the most remarkable features of Heretic's production design is the sheer attention to detail. The filmmakers don't settle for generic or surface-level decor. Instead, they layer the sets with rich textures and subtle clues that suggest histories and secrets lurking just beneath the surface. Imagine peeling wallpaper that hints at years of neglect, dusty bookshelves filled with arcane tomes, old photographs yellowed with age, and time-worn furniture that looks like it's witnessed countless tragedies. These details aren't randomly placed, they serve to build a dense atmosphere of decay and mystery, where every object feels like a fragment of a larger, darker puzzle. This meticulous world-building invites viewers to look closer, rewarding their attention with an immersive sense of place that feels lived in and disturbingly real. The choice of locations plays a crucial role in heightening the film's sense of dread and isolation. Instead of relying on cliched or overused horror settings, Heretic opts for a variety of distinctive and evocative places that complement the story's themes. Remote, fog-shrouded forests, dilapidated rural homes, and shadowy, labyrinthine interiors each contribute to the film's mood in unique ways. The natural settings, with their wild overgrowth and oppressive silence, evoke feelings of abandonment and the unknown, while the interiors, often cramped, dimly lit, and cluttered with relics, create a sense of claustrophobia and unease. These environments are visually compelling on their own, but they also act like pressure cookers, intensifying the emotional stakes and the tension building within the story. What elevates the set design further is the way symbolism is subtly woven into the physical environment. The production team peppers the sets with motifs and icons that deepen the narrative's mystery and thematic resonance. You might spot religious symbols etched into wooden beams, occult markings painted on cracked walls, or strange talismans arranged on dusty tables. These elements act like cryptic signposts, hinting at the film's deeper lore and encouraging the audience to piece together the underlying mythology. It's a clever storytelling technique that turns the environment into an active participant in the narrative, making every corner and object a potential clue in the unfolding mystery. Lighting and shadow are masterfully used alongside the set design to transform ordinary spaces into haunting landscapes filled with menace. Flickering candles cast dancing shadows that seem to twist and crawl, dark corners swallow figures whole, and narrow beams of moonlight slice through grimy windows, illuminating just enough to reveal hints of something lurking beyond. This interplay of light and darkness doesn't just create mood, it manipulates space itself, turning familiar rooms and corridors into unpredictable mazes where danger might be hiding just out of sight. The sets feel alive, almost breathing with an unseen presence, which keeps viewers constantly on edge. The color palette chosen for the production design also reinforces the film's ominous tone. Muted earth tones, deep browns, smoky grays, mossy greens dominate many scenes, suggesting decay, rot, and forgotten histories. These colors feel natural yet oppressive, grounding the supernatural elements in a world that feels weathered and worn. When the film shifts to moments of supernatural significance, bursts of unsettling colors, like sickly yellows, bruised purples, or ghostly blues, cut through the muted bass, drawing attention and heightening the sense of otherworldly menace. This careful use of color supports the emotional rhythm of a story, visually signaling shifts in mood without ever feeling forced or out of place. Even the smaller, more intimate spaces receive the same level of thoughtful design. Cramped basements, cluttered attics, and shadow-filled hallways are crafted to evoke claustrophobia and vulnerability, mirroring the character's psychological states. These tight, confined environments become pressure chambers for fear and tension, making every sound, every creak, and every flicker of movement feel magnified. The contrast between these claustrophobic interiors and the vast, open wilderness outside also underscores themes of entrapment and isolation, freedom and peril, making the film's locations resonate on both a narrative and emotional level. The production design also subtly mirrors the inner lives of the characters. Personal spaces reflect the characters' mental and emotional states. Disordered rooms filled with scattered relics hint at turmoil and obsession, while sterile, sparsely furnished spaces suggest emotional detachment or repression. These environmental cues give us nonverbal insight into the characters' struggles and motivations, enriching the storytelling by making the physical world a reflection of the psychological landscape. An impressive aspect of Heretic is the combination of on-location shoots with carefully constructed sets. The natural locations lend an organic authenticity that grounds the film's supernatural elements in a real, tactile world. Wide shots of brooding forests or abandoned villages add texture and depth that soundstage recreations would struggle to match. Meanwhile, interior sets provide the filmmakers with precise control over lighting, sound, and design, allowing for a heightened sense of mood and detail in key scenes. This blend of real and crafted environments creates a visually cohesive world that feels fully realized and immersive. In essence, the set design and locations in Heretic are a masterclass in how environment shapes story and mood. The filmmakers understand that in horror, where you are is as important as what's happening. They build a world rich in detail, atmosphere, and symbolism, a place where every shadow, every cracked wall, and every dusty relic holds a story waiting to be uncovered. This immersive, visually compelling environment not only supports the narrative but actively deepens it, turning the film's physical world into a haunting, unforgettable experience that stays with you long after the screen goes dark. The dialogue and script in Heretic go way beyond just moving the plot along. They are intricately woven to bring the characters and the story to vivid life, creating a dynamic interplay of voices that feel real, nuanced, and emotionally resonant. Right from the opening scenes, it's clear that the writers have invested serious thought into making sure each character speaks in a way that matches their personality, background, and emotional state, which gives the film a strong sense of authenticity. Instead of falling into the trap of predictable or overly expository lines, the dialogue feels fresh and purposeful, as if you're overhearing real conversations that have natural rhythms, hesitations, and quirks. One of the most captivating aspects of the script is its ability to balance tension with moments of sharp, dry wit or dark humor. In a horror film, this can be tricky to pull off without breaking the mood, but Heretic manages to thread the needle skillfully. The characters occasionally toss out sarcastic remarks or pointed observations that lighten the mood just enough to make the story more relatable and human without detracting from the underlying menace. These brief bursts of humor feel organic, often arising from the characters' personalities or the absurdity of their situations, and they serve as a kind of emotional relief valve for the audience, reminding us that even in terrifying circumstances, people still find ways to joke or express frustration. This makes the dialogue more engaging, dynamic, and memorable. When the script turns to emotional moments, it shines even brighter. It doesn't shy away from exploring the characters' inner turmoil, fears, regrets, and hopes, letting them voice feelings that add real depth and vulnerability to the narrative. These exchanges feel heartfelt and earned, capturing the rawness of human emotion in a way that elevates the film beyond surface-level scares. The characters reveal their doubts and struggles through conversations that are layered with meaning, whether it's a whispered confession in a moment of crisis or a tense argument that exposes buried wounds. This emotional honesty invites the audience to connect more deeply with the characters, rooting for them or empathizing with their plight, which in turn makes the horror elements hit harder. What really stands out are the script's memorable, quotable lines. These moments are sprinkled throughout the film, often packed with ominous foreshadowing, chilling wisdom, or philosophical musings that linger long after you've heard them. They give the film a sense of gravitas and thematic weight, hinting at the larger ideas at play beneath the surface story. Whether it's a cryptic warning about the forces in motion, a haunting phrase about belief and doubt, or a sharp one-liner that cuts through tension, these lines add texture and depth. They're the kind of dialogue that fans might find themselves repeating or pondering, enhancing the film's lasting impact. The script also understands the power of pacing and silence within dialogue. It knows when to let characters speak and when to hold back, allowing pauses and silences to do as much storytelling as the words themselves. These quiet moments build tension, create awkwardness, or allow emotions to simmer beneath the surface. The rhythm of conversations varies naturally, sometimes rapid-fire and intense, other times slow and heavy with meaning, making the interactions feel real and compelling. This masterful control of pacing prevents the dialogue from feeling flat or monotonous, instead giving it a living, breathing quality that pulls the audience into the scene. Interpersonal dynamics are another area where the script excels. The dialogue doesn't just reveal facts, it reveals relationships, power struggles, trust, and betrayal. Characters communicate with subtext, using what they say, and sometimes what they don't say, to negotiate alliances or fuel conflicts. The script avoids heavy-handed exposition by letting these interactions unfold naturally, showing rather than telling. You can sense the history, tension, or affection between characters through their exchanges, which enriches the narrative and deepens the emotional stakes. This layered dialogue adds complexity, making character relationships feel real and evolving rather than static. The script also skillfully incorporates thematic conversations without feeling preachy or forced. Themes like faith, the nature of evil, human resilience, and the battle between doubt and belief are explored through dialogue that feels organic to the story and characters. These philosophical or existential moments invite the audience to reflect on bigger ideas while still fitting comfortably within the film's tone and pacing. The writing manages to raise questions and provoke thought without slowing down the momentum, which is a tricky balance to strike in a genre that thrives on suspense and action. In terms of structural writing, the screenplay flows smoothly from one scene to the next, juggling exposition, character development, and tension building with a deft hand. The dialogue never feels like it's slowing down the story or overloading the viewer with information. Instead, it delivers just enough to keep the audience intrigued and emotionally engaged. Scenes that require explanation or background are handled through natural conversations rather than clunky monologues, maintaining the immersive experience and making the narrative feel seamless. Overall, the dialogue and script of Heretic reveal a sophisticated understanding of storytelling, character, and tone. They provide a vibrant, textured foundation that supports the film's atmosphere and themes, making conversations feel vital and alive rather than simply functional. The sharp wit, emotional depth, memorable lines, and careful pacing combine to create a rich verbal tapestry that pulls viewers into the character's world and keeps them hooked, invested, and thinking long after the credits roll. This script doesn't just tell a story, it invites you to listen closely, to feel deeply, and to engage with the mysteries and emotions at the heart of the film. Heretic dives into its genre like a skilled magician, pulling off a mix of classic tricks and brand new illusions, making sure you're never quite sure what's coming next, but always eager to see how it unfolds. The film knows its roots and traditions well. It's like a respectful nod to the foundations of horror and thriller storytelling, but then it adds its own fresh spin that keeps the whole experience feeling electric and unexpected. Instead of just delivering a predictable string of scares and suspense, it toys with the audience's expectations, sometimes leaning into familiar tropes and other times flipping them upside down, challenging the way we think about these genre staples. The suspense in Heretic is crafted with a great deal of finesse, avoiding the trap of relying solely on jump scares or loud noises to shock the viewer. Instead, it opts for a slow-building, creeping tension that worms its way under your skin. There's a layered approach to suspense here, atmospheric sounds, haunting visuals, and carefully timed silences all combine to create a pervasive sense of unease. The The tension isn't just about what you see on screen, but also about what you don't see. The lurking unknown, the unexplained shadows, the lingering doubts in the characters' minds. This careful construction keeps the suspense tight and consistent, so you're always anticipating that next moment without feeling manipulated or bored. When it comes to action, Heretic treats its sequences with a kind of narrative respect that's sometimes missing in genre films. The action isn't just thrown in for adrenaline or spectacle. It's motivated by the characters' emotional journeys and the story's escalating stakes. The choreography is precise, and the staging makes you feel right in the middle of the chaos rather than a detached observer. These moments pulse with energy but never overshadow the plot or the character development. Instead, they amplify the urgency and intensity, making the stakes tangible and visceral. You're not just watching fights or chases, you're living them alongside the characters, feeling their desperation, fear, and determination. Humor in Heretic is a clever, almost sneaky ingredient. It doesn't hit you over the head, but instead sneaks in through sharp dialogue, ironic situations, and character quirks. This kind of dark, sardonic humor helps balance the grim and intense tone, providing a breather for the audience without diffusing the tension. It's humor that feels earned, coming from characters trying to cope with impossible situations or from the absurdity lurking beneath the horror. This subtle comedic touch adds layers to the film's personality, making it feel more well-rounded and human. It also prevents the movie from becoming too bleak or monotonous, keeping viewers emotionally engaged and entertained. Drama is woven deeply into the fabric of Heretic, grounding the supernatural and thriller elements in real human experience. The film explores themes of loss, trust, betrayal, and the struggle for redemption through its characters' arcs and conflicts. This emotional depth makes the characters' plights feel immediate and relatable, even amidst the extraordinary circumstances they face. The drama adds gravity and complexity, ensuring that the scares and action have emotional resonance beyond just surface thrills. It's this blend of personal and paranormal that gives the film its compelling heartbeat. One of the standout aspects of Heretic is how it effortlessly blends multiple genres: horror, thriller, mystery, and even a touch of dark fantasy, into a cohesive whole. This genre fusion enriches the storytelling, allowing the film to explore different tones and moods without feeling disjointed or confusing. It keeps the narrative fresh and unpredictable, appealing to fans of different genres while maintaining a strong identity. The film isn't just a one-note scarefest. It's a layered, textured experience that invites viewers to think and feel on multiple levels. What makes Heretic especially interesting is its smart use of genre conventions. Instead of just recycling familiar ideas, it plays with them thoughtfully, digging beneath the surface to explore their psychological and thematic implications. Take, for example, the classic horror trope of an isolated, creepy location. Heretic doesn't just use it as a backdrop, but makes it an integral part of the story's atmosphere and the characters' mental states. The ancient curse or supernatural force isn't just a plot device. It becomes a symbol that reflects deeper questions about faith, fear, and human nature. This layered approach invites viewers to engage more actively with the film, noticing the nuances and symbolic meanings behind familiar genre elements. The film also demonstrates a keen awareness of pacing within genre execution. It knows when to dial up the intensity with heart-pounding sequences or chilling revelations, and when to slow down for character moments or atmospheric buildup. This rhythm keeps the audience hooked, balancing adrenaline-fueled scenes with quieter, more introspective ones. It's a pacing that respects the need for both excitement and reflection, preventing fatigue and maintaining emotional investment. Heretic, as genre execution, feels like a conversation between the filmmakers and the audience, a knowing dialogue that respects fans of horror and thriller while also inviting newcomers to experience the genre in a fresh way. The film nods to the classics and genre expectations, but isn't afraid to challenge or reimagine them. This playful yet respectful approach makes the viewing experience feel participatory rather than passive, as if you're part of a shared secret about what scares and fascinates us. The balance of suspense, action, humor, and drama is finely tuned, allowing each element to shine without overpowering the others. The horror moments are scary but not gratuitous, the action is exciting but not exhausting, the humor is sharp but not distracting, and the drama is heartfelt but not melodramatic. This equilibrium creates a satisfying, multifaceted film experience that entertains, thrills, and provokes thought simultaneously. In essence, Heretic doesn't just fit neatly into a genre box, it stretches, reshapes, and revitalizes that box in clever ways. It respects the foundations of horror and thriller storytelling while confidently introducing new ideas and emotional layers that make it stand out. The film is a reminder that genre movies can be both thrilling and thoughtful, scary and smart, familiar and innovative, all at the same time. This careful and creative genre execution keeps you guessing, invested, and ultimately entertained from the first scene to the last. Heretic doesn't just settle for delivering thrills and chills. It goes a step further by embedding some really thought-provoking social and cultural commentary that sneaks in beneath the surface in a way that feels natural, not preachy or forced. The film smartly uses its story and characters as a canvas to explore contemporary issues, politics, and cultural tensions, making you think while you're caught up in the suspense and drama. It's like a masterclass in blending entertainment with meaningful messages without ever losing its grip on the audience's attention. At the heart of the film's social commentary is its exploration of belief systems, how faith, superstition, and ideology shape people's lives, decisions, and fears. Heretic doesn't just use supernatural elements as cheap scares. It delves into how humans respond to the unknown by turning to stories, rituals, and dogmas. The film paints a complex picture of faith. It can be a source of comfort and community, but also a source of division and conflict. What's fascinating is that it doesn't frame belief in simple terms of good or bad, but rather presents it as a powerful force with many shades, showing how people's faith can lead them to both heroic and tragic actions. This nuanced portrayal encourages the audience to reflect on how belief influences behavior in the real world, especially in times of crisis or uncertainty. Adding to this, Heretic touches on the age-old tension between tradition and progress, something very relevant in today's fast-changing cultural landscape. Many characters in the film are caught between holding on to their heritage and adapting to new realities. This dynamic isn't just background flavor, it's woven into the characters' motivations and conflicts, adding depth to their personal journeys. The film explores how traditions can provide identity and a sense of belonging, but can also become barriers that prevent growth or understanding. This tension mirrors ongoing conversations in society about cultural preservation versus change, making the story resonate beyond its genre trappings. One of the remarkable things about Heretic is how it handles these complex, often sensitive topics with real subtlety and care. It never simplifies the messiness of human beliefs or social conflicts into black and white answers. Instead, it embraces the ambiguity and contradictions inherent in culture and ideology. Characters struggle with doubt, guilt, loyalty, and fear in ways that feel raw and authentic, which makes the film's social commentary emotionally impactful as well as intellectually stimulating. This careful balancing act keeps the movie grounded and relatable, even as it explores supernatural horror and thriller elements. Political themes thread quietly through the narrative, not with loud declarations but through the undercurrents of power, control, and resistance. The film hints at how authorities or dominant groups can manipulate fear and belief to maintain their grip on people, using the idea of the other, or ancient curses as metaphors for real-world social and political oppression. This adds a chilling layer of realism, reminding viewers that sometimes the scariest forces are human-made rather than supernatural. The political commentary is woven so seamlessly into the story that it enriches the narrative without overwhelming the suspense and excitement. The cultural setting of Heretic feels rich and lived in, showing the complexity of community and identity. It recognizes that culture isn't a monolith, but a tapestry of varied experiences and viewpoints, which sometimes clash and sometimes harmonize. The film incorporates cultural details, like language, rituals, and social behaviors, in ways that deepen the story and make the world more believable. This attention to cultural texture helps avoid cliches and adds authenticity, inviting the audience to immerse themselves fully in the character's environment. Interestingly, Heretic uses humor and irony as tools to sharpen its social critique. The film isn't afraid to highlight absurdities or contradictions within belief systems and social norms, often with a dark, sardonic edge. This humor provides a necessary release valve, preventing the commentary from becoming too heavy or didactic. It also makes the film more accessible and engaging, as you find yourself both entertained and challenged to think critically about the issues presented. What sets Heretic apart is how it trusts the audience to pick up on its layered messages without spelling everything out explicitly. The social and cultural themes are carefully embedded in character interactions, visual motifs, and plot developments, rewarding viewers who pay close attention with deeper insights. This subtlety encourages multiple viewings, as new layers and meanings can emerge each time you watch the film. Ultimately, Heretic shows that a genre film can be much more than just a roller coaster ride of scares and thrills. By embedding social and cultural commentary in a way that feels organic and integral to the story, it elevates itself into a thought-provoking experience. It tackles real-world issues about belief, identity, power, and change, making the narrative richer and more resonant without ever losing its grip as a compelling thriller. The film strikes a rare balance where it entertains, scares, and sparks reflection all at once, proving that smart, socially aware storytelling and genre entertainment can go hand in hand beautifully. Heretic doesn't just aim to entertain. It goes further by creating a rich emotional landscape that resonates deeply with its audience, pulling them in and holding their attention in ways that feel both thrilling and meaningful. From the very first scenes, the film establishes a rhythm that keeps viewers emotionally hooked, skillfully balancing intense moments of suspense with quieter, more contemplative beats that allow feelings to settle and sink in. It's this ebb and flow that prevents emotional fatigue and keeps the experience fresh, engaging, and layered with nuance. The film's ability to evoke a wide spectrum of emotions is one of its strongest assets. Whether it's the adrenaline rush of a shocking plot twist, the eerie chill of a supernatural encounter, or the tender vulnerability in a character's moment of doubt or loss, Heretic hits those emotional notes with precision. These moments don't just happen for shock value, they serve the story and deepen our investment in the characters and their journeys. As a result, laughter, tears, and gasps of surprise all feel earned and genuine, creating a more immersive and memorable viewing experience. What really sets Heretic apart is how it encourages active emotional engagement rather than passive consumption. The film doesn't hand you feelings on a platter, but invites you to step inside the characters' shoes and experience their struggles, fears, and hopes firsthand. This creates a powerful connection where you aren't just watching the story unfold, you're living it alongside the characters. When they face danger, heartbreak, or moral dilemmas, the impact resonates on a personal level, making the thrills more intense and the quieter moments more profound. In addition to immediate emotional responses, Heretic sparks ongoing reflection and discussion. The film's complex themes, ambiguous situations, and morally gray characters leave plenty of room for interpretation, encouraging viewers to debate motivations, symbolism, and possible outcomes. This kind of engagement transforms a simple movie night into a conversation starter, making it a film that people want to revisit and talk about with friends, family, or online communities. It's the kind of movie that grows richer with each viewing, revealing new details and emotional layers that might have been missed the first time around. The film also masterfully uses pacing and storytelling to keep the audience emotionally invested. It knows when to dial up the tension and when to pull back for introspection, ensuring viewers are not overwhelmed but instead carried along on a well-crafted emotional journey. Moments of relief and humor are sprinkled throughout to offer breathing space, making the darker or more intense scenes hit even harder by contrast. This careful emotional modulation keeps the audience on edge without exhaustion, maintaining a steady connection throughout. Another key aspect of the film's engagement is its richly drawn characters. Their believable struggles, growth, and relationships invite empathy, making it easy to root for them, feel their pain, or even question their choices. This human element grounds the film's supernatural or thrilling elements, making the stakes feel real and personal. Because you care about what happens to these characters, every twist, setback, or triumph resonates emotionally, creating a satisfying and compelling viewing experience. Heretic also excels in its use of suspense and surprise to keep the audience emotionally alert. The film carefully builds anticipation, then delivers shocks or revelations that jolt viewers out of complacency, reigniting excitement and curiosity. These moments are never gratuitous, but but are woven into the narrative fabric, enhancing the emotional stakes and making each twist meaningful. The unpredictability keeps viewers guessing and emotionally engaged, eager to see what happens next. At the same time, the film respects its audience's emotional intelligence. It doesn't spell out every feeling or reaction, but leaves space for viewers to interpret and respond in their own way. This open-endedness invites multiple emotional readings and personal connections, allowing each viewer to experience the film uniquely. This approach not only broadens the film's appeal, but also encourages rewatching to uncover new emotional or thematic insights. Moreover, Heretic's emotional resonance extends beyond the screen by inviting reflection on larger questions about human nature, belief, and fear. It taps into universal emotions, vulnerability, hope, doubt, in ways that feel authentic and relatable, creating a connection that lingers long after the film ends. The emotional journey is not just about the plot, but about how the story reflects our own experiences and anxieties, making it a deeply personal viewing experience for many. In sum, Heretic is a masterclass in audience engagement, combining thrilling entertainment with emotional depth and intellectual stimulation. It skillfully navigates the delicate balance between excitement and reflection, delivering moments that make you jump, laugh, cry, and think, all within the same film. By creating a rich emotional tapestry that resonates on multiple levels, it ensures viewers are not only entertained but genuinely connected, making the movie an unforgettable experience that invites repeat viewings and ongoing discussion. When you really dive deep into comparing Heretic with other films in its genre, franchise, or the director's previous works, you start to see how it carves out its own unique space while still tipping its hat to the classics and familiar tropes that fans love. The supernatural thriller and horror landscape is crowded with films that often rely on tried-and-true formulas, haunted houses, possession stories, ancient curses, and it can sometimes feel like every new release is just retreading old ground. But Heretic manages to stand apart by mixing those familiar genre staples with a fresh perspective and a willingness to explore darker, more complex themes without losing its pulse-pounding excitement. It's like it's learned the rules well enough to break them in smart and unexpected ways, which keeps you guessing and engaged throughout. If we think about how Heretic sits alongside iconic supernatural thrillers like The Witch, Hereditary, or even The Babadook, there are similarities in the way atmosphere and mood dominate the storytelling, but Heretic also adds layers of emotional complexity and moments of levity that the others often forego. Where films like Hereditary might bury you under relentless despair, Heretic balances its darker moments with flashes of humanity and even humor, which makes the scares hit differently. This combination creates a more dynamic emotional ride that can appeal not just to hardcore horror fans, but also to those who appreciate psychological depth and character-driven narratives. It's this blend of visceral horror and emotional storytelling that gives Heretic a distinct flavor in a genre that sometimes feels one note. When looking at the director's filmography, Heretic feels like a confident evolution of their style and thematic interests. If the director's previous films were known for their atmospheric tension, strong character focus, and thoughtful storytelling, this movie takes those strengths and refines them with more polish and ambition. The pacing is tighter, the narrative more layered, and the visual storytelling bolder. Fans of the director's earlier work will recognize the fingerprints, but also appreciate how Heretic expands on their vision, introducing new complexities and richer symbolism. For newcomers, it offers a well-crafted, immersive experience that doesn't rely on familiarity with the director's past projects. In terms of franchise comparisons, Heretic steers clear of the trap that many sequels or shared universe films fall into, reliance on recycled plot lines and fan service. Unlike franchises such as Insidious or The Conjuring, which often revisit the same supernatural elements with minor variations, Heretic builds its own mythology and rules. This independence gives the film a freshness that's sometimes missing in long-running series. It's not just another haunted house or possession tale, it explores its supernatural elements through unique cultural lenses and character-driven mysteries. This originality makes it feel more self-contained and creative, avoiding the pitfalls of predictable franchise formulas. When compared to other recent horror films that delve into folklore, religion, or occult themes, Heretic brings a thoughtful, nuanced take that challenges black and white portrayals of good and evil. Instead of portraying supernatural forces as purely malevolent or benevolent, the film dwells in moral ambiguity, raising questions about faith, doubt, and the nature of belief itself. This philosophical depth enriches the narrative and invites viewers to engage with the story on a more intellectual level. It's a refreshing change from more straightforward horror movies, which often rely on clear-cut antagonists and simple moral lessons. From a technical standpoint, Heretic holds its own against big-budget genre films. The cinematography, sound design, and editing all work together to create an immersive experience that feels polished and cinematic. The film's use of lighting and framing to evoke mood and symbolism rivals some of the best in the genre, while the soundscape expertly builds tension through subtle audio cues and well-placed silences. The editing maintains a tight pace that keeps viewers hooked without feeling rushed or uneven. This technical proficiency enhances the storytelling, allowing Heretic to compete with high-profile productions despite what might be a more modest budget. What's also notable is how Heretic manages to inject moments of humor and warmth that many of its genre peers often avoid. Horror movies can sometimes be relentlessly grim, but here, the filmmakers allow space for human connection, levity, and even irony, which creates a richer, more varied emotional experience. These moments help balance the tension and make the characters feel more relatable, which in turn heightens the stakes and the emotional payoff when the horror elements come into play. This tonal balance broadens the film's appeal, making it engaging for a wider audience. Ultimately, when you put Heretic side by side with similar films, it becomes clear that it's not just following a familiar formula. Instead, it's blending genre conventions with new ideas, deeper themes, and strong character work to create something that feels both comfortably familiar and boldly original. It respects the traditions of supernatural thrillers and horror while pushing boundaries and exploring fresh territory. The film offers a unique combination of emotional resonance, intellectual intrigue, and cinematic craftsmanship that sets it apart from many others in the crowded field. Whether you're a die-hard fan of the genre or someone looking for a thoughtful, well-made thriller, Heretic delivers an experience that's both entertaining and thought-provoking, making it a standout in its category. Heretic unfolds like a masterclass in visual storytelling where symbolism and metaphors aren't just sprinkled here and there, they're woven intricately into the very fabric of the film, enriching every frame with hidden depths that invite viewers to become active participants in decoding the story. From the very first scene, you realize this isn't just a horror or thriller flick that delivers scares and suspense on the surface. It's a carefully crafted narrative tapestry loaded with subtle visual cues and recurring motifs that deepen the emotional and thematic resonance, making the viewing experience far more immersive and thought-provoking. One of the most compelling uses of symbolism in Heretic lies in how everyday objects and seemingly simple elements gain layered meanings. Take the worn-out cross that appears multiple times. On the surface, it's a religious artifact, but within the film's context, it morphs into a symbol of fractured faith and lingering doubt. It's a visual shorthand for the struggle between belief and skepticism, the tension between hope and despair that drives much of the emotional core. Similarly, the flickering candlelight isn't just about creating atmosphere. It symbolizes the fragile nature of truth and clarity, flickering in and out as the characters grapple with their fears and revelations. These objects become almost characters themselves, silently narrating parts of a story that words cannot fully capture. Light and shadow play a huge role in the film's metaphorical language. The cinematography uses this contrast not only to create a chilling atmosphere but also to visually echo the psychological states of the characters. Scenes drenched in shadow often suggest confusion, repression, or the unknown lurking beneath the surface, while sudden beams of light cut through the darkness like moments of insight or hope. This interplay between darkness and light becomes a powerful metaphor for the film's exploration of internal versus external realities, the battle between hidden fears and conscious understanding. Watching this unfold on screen feels like witnessing a visual poem where each shadow and highlight carries emotional weight and narrative significance. Recurring motifs act like thematic anchors throughout Heretic, threading the story together and providing a sense of cohesion that rewards attentive viewers. Birds, for example, appear sporadically in various scenes, and carry a range of symbolic meanings: freedom, the soul's journey, or a bridge between the natural and supernatural worlds. Their presence isn't random. Each appearance nudges the audience to consider the film's questions about escape, transcendence, and the thin veil between life and death. Colors also become symbolic players, with specific hues recurring in key moments to evoke particular emotions or signify transformation. A sudden splash of red might hint at danger, passion, or sacrifice, while muted tones create a sense of decay or loss, subtly guiding the audience's emotional responses without explicit dialogue. The film's physical spaces, its sets and locations, aren't mere backgrounds but metaphorical extensions of the characters' inner worlds. The claustrophobic interiors filled with peeling wallpaper and flickering lights mirror the protagonist's psychological entrapment and unraveling sanity. Conversely, the vast, mist-covered forests or desolate fields open up as metaphors for isolation, the unknown, and the confrontation with primal fears. These locations almost breathe with symbolic life, shaping the narrative mood and reinforcing the emotional arcs. The way the camera lingers on certain corners or frames a doorway just so invites viewers to sense the looming threats or hidden possibilities, turning every environment into a storytelling device. Rituals and symbolic actions add another fascinating layer, elevating scenes beyond their literal plot function. When characters engage in old rites, prayers, or mysterious ceremonies, these moments become rich metaphors for themes of power, control, and transformation. The rituals echo cultural fears and spiritual battles, representing the characters' struggles with identity, belief, and morality. These sequences often feel charged with an almost mythic energy, drawing on archetypal imagery that resonates across cultures and time periods. This mythic dimension gives Heretic a timeless quality, suggesting that the personal struggles we see on screen are reflections of universal human conflicts. Moreover, the film excels in using silence and stillness as symbolic tools. Moments where the soundtrack drops away or the camera holds on a lingering shot become charged with meaning, inviting introspection or emphasizing emotional weight. Silence in Heretic isn't empty, it's pregnant with tension, unspoken fears, or profound realizations. This use of silence contrasts sharply with more intense sequences, creating a rhythm of sound and quiet that amplifies the film's emotional impact and symbolic depth. What's particularly exciting about Heretic is how all these symbolic and metaphorical elements aren't clunky or forced. They flow naturally within the story and the characters' journeys, never feeling like the film is trying too hard to be artsy or cryptic. Instead, they add richness and texture, making the experience layered and rewarding for viewers who love to unpack meaning while still delivering a gripping, emotional story. This balance means the film works on multiple levels. Whether you're drawn in by the suspense or fascinated by the underlying messages, there's something here to engage every kind of viewer. On repeat viewings, these symbols and metaphors continue to reveal new facets, turning Heretic into a film that grows in complexity and depth over time. It's like the movie quietly invites you back, promising that with each watch, you'll uncover fresh insights, new connections, and deeper emotional resonance. This ongoing discovery process makes the film feel alive and dynamic, sparking conversations and interpretations that keep the story alive well beyond the final frame. In the end, the symbolic language of Heretic is the secret ingredient that elevates it from a standard genre film to a rich, multidimensional work of art. The hidden layers of meaning, the visual metaphors, and the recurring motifs don't just decorate the story, they breathe life into it, transforming every scene into a meaningful experience that lingers in the mind. This sophisticated use of symbolism and metaphor turns Heretic into a cinematic treasure hunt, rewarding those who look beyond the obvious and inviting everyone to explore the mysteries beneath the surface. Heretic doesn't just arrive on screen as an isolated story. It steps into a larger narrative or historical framework that adds layers of depth and excitement to the whole viewing experience. Whether it's nestled within an ongoing franchise or rooted deeply in a specific historical period, this context transforms the film from just another movie into a piece of a broader puzzle or a vivid reenactment of the past, giving audiences much more to chew on than surface thrills. If we look at Heretic as part of a franchise, it's fascinating to see how it fits within the big picture, expanding and enriching the universe fans have come to love. This isn't a simple rerun or a copy-paste of previous installments, but a smart evolution that respects the original material while boldly exploring new territory. The film weaves together familiar threads, like beloved characters, iconic settings, or established lore, but throws in twists and fresh angles that keep the story from feeling stale. It's like revisiting an old friend who's changed in interesting ways, rather than seeing the same old version over and over. The franchise's history provides a rich backdrop that deepens the stakes and emotional impact of the new film's events, making it feel both connected and vital. One of the fun parts about franchise entries like Heretic is the way they drop subtle nods and Easter eggs that reward longtime fans without alienating newcomers. These moments create a sense of insider knowledge and community. Viewers feel part of a shared experience, piecing together references and speculating about future directions. At the same time, the film is crafted so that you don't need a PhD in franchise lore to follow the plot, striking a careful balance between accessibility and depth. It's a tricky line to walk, but when done well, it makes the film enjoyable for all audiences, whether they've binge-watched every previous entry or are watching for the first time. Moreover, Heretic often uses its place in the franchise to build toward something bigger. It might answer lingering questions, reveal hidden backstories, or introduce new characters who shake up the established order. This layering adds complexity and intrigue, turning the film into an essential piece of a larger narrative puzzle rather than a standalone tale. Fans get to see how events ripple through the franchise's timeline, influencing characters and outcomes in unexpected ways. And the film might end with tantalizing hints or cliffhangers that promise even more thrilling developments down the line, keeping the audience eagerly anticipating what comes next. On the flip side, if Heretic is a historical film, its success often hinges on how well it recreates the world it depicts, how convincingly it transports us to a different time and place, making the past come alive with authenticity and texture. This goes beyond just costumes and sets. It's about capturing the spirit of the era, the social dynamics, cultural norms, and even the atmosphere of the time. The film might explore political upheavals, religious conflicts, or everyday life details that ground the story in reality and provide context for the characters' choices and struggles. What's thrilling about Heretic as a historical film is the way it balances accuracy with storytelling flair. It doesn't get bogged down in dry historical detail, but weaves facts into the narrative so smoothly that you learn without even realizing it. Historical events and figures aren't just mentioned in passing, they become integral to the story, influencing plot twists and character arcs in meaningful ways. This approach makes history feel dynamic and relevant, connecting past and present in ways that resonate emotionally and intellectually. The film might also shed light on lesser-known stories or perspectives, offering fresh insights that challenge or enrich the popular understanding of the era. Of course, historical films often face the challenge of balancing fact and fiction, and Heretic might take creative liberties to heighten drama or deepen themes. These choices can be controversial, but when handled thoughtfully, they serve to illuminate the human experience behind the history, making complex events accessible and emotionally engaging. The key is that the film maintains a respectful and immersive portrayal, avoiding glaring anachronisms or inaccuracies that could pull the audience out of the story. Instead, every detail, from the architecture to the language, works in harmony to create a believable world that draws viewers in and invites them to step back in time. Whether woven into a sprawling franchise or anchored in a specific historical moment, Heretic uses its context as a springboard for richer storytelling. This connection to a larger narrative or real-world background gives the film weight and dimension, inviting audiences to engage not just with the immediate story but with the broader universe or history it inhabits. It's like opening a door to a vast, complex world full of stories waiting to be discovered, making the film feel alive, meaningful, and part of something much bigger than itself. This layered experience elevates Heretic beyond just entertainment. It becomes a gateway to exploration, speculation, and deeper appreciation that stays with viewers long after the credits roll. When we dive deeper into Heretic's financial story, it's like peeling back layers on a fascinating behind-the-scenes drama that often rivals the film itself in complexity. The budget of a movie is more than just a number, it's the blueprint that shapes everything from casting and locations to visual effects and marketing. For Heretic, the budget was carefully allocated to strike a balance between ambition and practicality. Unlike a massive blockbuster that might throw hundreds of millions at every scene, this film made smart, strategic choices to get the biggest bang for its buck. It's a perfect example of how you don't always need a colossal budget to create a rich, cinematic experience. Sometimes ingenuity and resourcefulness matter just as much. The production quality of Heretic reflects this savvy approach. Every frame, every set, and every effect carries the mark of careful planning. You can see that the filmmakers didn't just rely on expensive CGI or flashy effects. Instead, they combined practical effects, detailed set design, and focused storytelling to craft a film that looks polished and immersive. This mix of technique shows a level of craftsmanship that respects the budget while still delivering that wow factor audiences crave. It's like watching a beautifully choreographed dance where every move is intentional and perfectly timed, rather than a chaotic scramble fueled only by money. But once the cameras stop rolling, the real financial test begins. How does Heretic perform at the box office? This is where the numbers tell a new story, one influenced not only by the film's quality, but by a myriad of external forces. Did it storm the theaters, packing seats and breaking records? Or did it quietly find its audience, perhaps overshadowed by bigger releases or shifting market trends? Box office success can be elusive and sometimes frustratingly unpredictable. A film as well-crafted as Heretic might not always get the blockbuster numbers, especially in today's crowded and competitive marketplace where streaming services and global events constantly shift audience habits. Marketing is a huge piece of this puzzle. For Heretic, the marketing campaign was designed to build excitement and curiosity without giving everything away. Trailers, posters, and promotional interviews teased the film's unique tone and story, aiming to attract both genre fans and casual viewers. The timing of the marketing blitz, when trailers dropped, how aggressively the film was promoted, and the use of social media influencers played a critical role in shaping public awareness. A well-executed marketing campaign can ignite a spark that turns a modest film into a must-see event, while a misstep or underwhelming promotion can leave a film in the shadows, regardless of its quality. Audience reception and word of mouth then become the wild cards. Early viewers' reactions can make or break a film's ongoing box office run. If Heretic managed to connect emotionally or entertained enough to inspire conversations and social media buzz, it would have enjoyed a multiplier effect. More viewers drawn in by positive reviews and recommendations. On the other hand, if the film's tone, pacing, or story didn't resonate widely, it might have faced challenges sustaining momentum after the opening weekend. Sometimes films that don't explode at the box office initially find a second life through streaming platforms, rentals, or physical media, reaching audiences who miss the theatrical window but become passionate fans nonetheless. International box office adds another layer to this financial picture. Different regions respond differently to various genres and styles, and Heretic might have seen stronger performance overseas in places where the themes or storytelling style hit closer to home. International earnings can be critical, especially for films with moderate domestic runs, and can significantly boost the total revenue. Distributors often tailor marketing and release strategies for different countries, which means the financial fate of Heretic also depended on how well these strategies aligned with local audiences' tastes and preferences. We can't forget the ongoing financial impact beyond the theatrical release. Today's movie ecosystem is complex, with streaming rights, digital sales, merchandise, and even licensing deals contributing to a film's bottom line. Heretic's story in the marketplace continues as it becomes available on different platforms, potentially reaching a wider and more diverse audience. Sometimes a film that doesn't set records in theaters ends up hugely successful in the long run through these additional channels. All of this together makes the budget and box office discussion about Heretic a rich tapestry of creativity, strategy, and audience dynamics. It's a reminder that filmmaking is as much about navigating the business landscape as it is about telling stories. The numbers may tell part of the story, but the true picture includes the passion of the creators, the response of the audience, and the unpredictable journey that every film takes from script to screen to living memory. All right, Let's dive even deeper into where and how you can catch Heretic, because choosing the right way to watch this film can totally change your experience. Starting with the classic, the timeless, the undeniable cinematic experience, theaters. If Heretic is playing near you, don't sleep on grabbing those tickets. Watching it on the big screen means you get to soak in the full atmosphere the filmmakers intended. The huge screen fills your vision. The surround sound blasts every chilling score and sharp sound effect straight into your senses, and the shared audience reactions amplify every twist, scare, or jaw-dropping moment. It's almost like the movie reaches out and grabs you, pulling you right into its world. Plus, let's be honest, some scenes just feel more epic and intense when experienced in that communal dark room where every eye is glued to the screen. But hey, not everyone can make it to theaters, and that's totally okay because the digital age has made catching up with Heretic easier than ever. Streaming platforms are probably your most convenient option, letting you watch from the comfort of your own couch, bed, or even on the go. Whether it's on Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, Hulu, or another service, Heretic might be part of their lineup, either included with your subscription or available as a rental or purchase. Streaming gives you the freedom to pause, rewind, or binge-watch at your own pace, which is fantastic for a film like this where you might want to catch subtle details or savor a suspenseful scene just a little longer. Just make sure your internet connection is solid to avoid buffering interruptions during those key moments. Then there's the digital rental or purchase route on platforms like Apple iTunes, Google Play, or YouTube Movies, where you can buy Heretic to own forever or rent for a limited time. This is a great middle ground if you want the movie in high definition, often 1080p or 4K, to really appreciate the crisp visuals and special effects. Having the film stored on your device also means you can watch it anywhere, anytime, without worrying about internet connectivity. Perfect for flights, road trips, or just chilling without interruptions. For the collectors and cinephiles out there, physical copies like Blu-ray and DVD are the ultimate way to experience Heretic. Beyond the pristine picture and sound quality, these editions often come packed with bonus content. Think director's commentary, behind-the-scenes featurettes, interviews with the cast, deleted scenes, and more. These extras give you a peek behind the curtain, revealing the creative process, challenges, and fun moments that went into making the film. It's like getting a backstage pass that enhances your appreciation and adds layers to your viewing. Plus, owning a physical copy means no worries about the film disappearing from streaming services, which can happen when licensing deals expire. And speaking of special experiences, don't overlook the occasional special screenings, film festivals, or fan events. Sometimes Heretic will be showcased in unique settings, like a midnight horror marathon or a genre festival, where the atmosphere is electric with fellow fans. These events often feature live Q/and sessions, panel discussions, or even meet and greets with the filmmakers and actors, making your viewing more interactive and memorable. It's the kind of experience that turns a simple movie night into a full-on celebration of the film and its community. Now let's talk about how to create the perfect viewing environment, regardless of where you watch it. For a movie like Heretic, which thrives on mood, suspense, and intricate details, the right setup can make all the difference. A dark room is essential to eliminate distractions and let the visuals pop. If possible, use a big screen TV or a projector for that cinematic feel, and crank up the sound with a good quality sound system or headphones. The film's score and sound effects are crafted to build tension and atmosphere, so immersing yourself in that audio landscape heightens every emotional beat and jump scare. Even lighting matters. Avoid glare or reflections on the screen, and create a cozy space that lets you lose yourself in the story. Lastly, timing your viewing can be a fun little trick. Watching Heretic late at night, when the world outside is quiet and shadows are longer, can ramp up the eerie vibes and make the experience more intense. On the flip side, a daytime watch with friends might turn it into a lively event full of reactions and discussions. Either way, the key is to find what makes you feel most connected to the film. So, whether you're lining up for tickets, clicking play on your favorite streaming service, sliding a Blu-ray into your player, or attending a special screening event, there's a perfect way for everyone to experience Heretic. Each method brings its own flavor to the journey, but no matter how you choose, one thing is guaranteed. This film is designed to pull you in, keep you hooked, and leave you thinking long after the credits roll.